Good morning, everyone. I'm Julie Webb with Digium, and we're here today for another episode of Asterisk Live. Very excited today to have with us not only the amazing David Duffett, but our guest today is Dan Jenkins. He's the CEO of Nimble Ape. He's a longtime Asterisk community member, an Asterisk contributor, and just an all-around nice guy. So excited to have Dan with us today, and I'm going to turn it over to David, who will tell us a little bit about how he and Dan came to meet one another.
Yeah, okay, well thank you very much, Julie. And of course, as a bonus, Dan's a Brit, isn't he? So 2 Brits on the call this morning.
I love it.
Which is great. So yeah, usually, Dan, on these kind of interviews, we'd ask you to explain how you got into Asterisk, and I'm sure you will be able to do that. But since you and I met each other early on in your, when I say early on in Asterisk, I know you'd already been doing some Asterisk stuff, but we met some years ago, and I wanted to explain that. So one of the things I do is I deliver Asterisk training, and I went along to the company that Dan was working for at the time to deliver some Asterisk training, and it turned out that Dan had already written some very sharp stuff in Node.js as a layer on top of the AMI, the Asterisk Manager interface, and Dan will be able to correct me if I get any of this terribly wrong. But Dan had done something like that for a contact center of over 100 people, I think, or it may have been a bit smaller, but they were based on Macs, and he'd got a soft client running that he'd created, and he'd done a lot of work there. And seeing that Dan was a pretty cool guy, I said, Dan, this is exactly the sort of thing that somebody should talk at Astrakhan about, and that somebody would be you. So Dan came along to Astrakhan, and of course it didn't take very long before everybody else had spotted that I was on the right track with Dan, and he was a key man, and before too long people were trying to reel him in to the Digium world to do Asterisk stuff. Dan, how much of that did I get right?
99% of it.
Yeah, so go ahead, fill in the gaps for us. Tell us where you got started.
So, yeah, I started with Asterisk probably, I don't know, must be 5-6 years ago. Yeah, 5 years ago, something like that. Yeah, as the company that I used to work for, we were moving over to VoIP. We didn't really know what we wanted to do at the time. We just knew that we wanted to move away from a legacy analog system, and over the course of, I think it was like 2-year project in total, we moved from that over to Asterisk, and yeah, we wrote a lot of integration into Asterisk for our contact center. It was just over 100 at the time, and as far as I'm aware, they've grown considerably since. Especially, I left around 2 years ago now, and I know that they've grown an awful lot since then. So yeah, Asterisk is powering a call center that takes an awful lot of calls every single day with integration via the AMI.
And to give an example or an insight into the scale, the old legacy system, which was connected to the outside world via PRIs, I believe took up nearly 4 full racks of equipment in the equipment room. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. And we went down to 2, yeah, exactly, 2 Zorcon boxes, I think.
2U or 4U worth of Asterisk. Quite amazing.
Yeah.
Indeed. Yeah, and what you'd specifically done there, well, of course, you know, it's great that you'd been able to replace a legacy PBX like that, but part of the secret Dan Jenkins sauce was what you'd done for the contact center agents, wasn't it? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so, I mean, what we came up with at the very beginning is very different to what they have today, and what I left the company with 2 years ago. At the very beginning, we were using the agent interface into Asterisk, and so you had to do particular things, like with the agent interface, softphone, like the softphone, you didn't have control over making multiple phone calls, etc., because of the way that the agent interface worked. So So like what we wrote into the contact center with Node and the AMI and WebSockets and all of that jazz was the ability to have a call, put it on hold, make another call, all within the browser. But as time went on, we realized that the agent interface was not the best, and the Asterisk team know this. So much so that I think they discourage people from using it now, and it might be on its way out. I can't remember.
Yes, when you say the agent interface, we're talking about the agent channel, aren't we?
Agent channels, yes, exactly. The agent chan agent. So yeah, we moved away from that. We kind of took back some of the control and put it into the soft phone on the Mac, and yeah, the integration into the CRM essentially knew when a phone call came in. It gathered information from the phone number, went off to databases to gather customer information so that they could give back better information to the customer. Like we'd be able to pre-fill information. Loads of kind of cool things using real-time technology, web real-time technology.
Yeah, very cool indeed. So, certainly in my role, sometimes I get kind of blinkered into just thinking about Asterisk, whereas Asterisk is usually just one part of an integrated system. You've just given us an example of that. I mean, it's a crucial part, of course, the telephony, but the CRM and the database and all that kind of stuff it was hooked up to was also a big part.
It used to be that you would your Asterisk instance would go off to the database and get this customer information, and it would give back the information to like the soft phone or the hard phone on the desk and give back some information that way. And so Asterisk used to be this kind of monolith where everything was connected up via the phone system, and that's just not the case anymore. Everything's getting like smaller in terms of like its integrity in that whole network of things. You could swap Asterisk out for something else. Not that anyone would want to, because Asterisk is Asterisk, but Asterisk is doing less and less now, and we see that with the growth of the ARI. Asterisk isn't making decisions about phone calls anymore. It's just dealing with media now.
Yes, it is the kind of engine underneath a lot of applications now, and whereas when Asterisk started, people would use parts of Asterisk and parts of the different configuration files, that they're more likely to be coming from somewhere they're more natively happy and then drilling in and having Asterisk do some of the engine work for them, aren't they?
Exactly.
Okay, so by the way, do you mind if we mention the company you used to work for, because they are open source advocates, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so they're called Holiday Extras.
A big shout out to Holiday Extras.
They sell airport parking and airport hotels and short breaks to like theme parks, things like that in the UK. They're huge open source people. They contribute back to open source as much as they can.
That was the important point I wanted to make. They're not just taking from the world of open source, they're keen to contribute back, and one of the ways they contributed back was sending you over to Astrakhan to talk about what you'd been up to. So
yeah, absolutely.
You could talk about that part of the story and how it led to you getting involved in the part of Digium that you did.
So yeah, so one thing that we missed earlier, you told me to go and talk about this at Astrakhan, and I had never done public speaking before in my life. So it's all thanks to you that I now do public speaking at conferences. For example, I'm speaking at about 5 or 6 this year.
Right, but by the way, just a point of clarification, Dan, told is slightly strong. I think I asked you really nicely.
So yeah, what was the question? The question was, what have we done? What have I done since then?
Yeah, it was how you moved from speaking at your first Astrakhan to getting involved with Digium in the way that you did.
So I guess I was I think I was very lucky personally. So I guess so I spoke at 1 Astrakhan, 2 Astrakhans, 3 Astrakhans. No, two, and then I started talking to some people at Digium about something that they wanted to do. There was a load of kind of secrecy around it, and I wasn't really allowed to know anything about it, other than they were interested in doing something. Anyway, a couple of months later, we started talking about it a bit more, and I learned that Digium were looking to get into web technology and web communications with WebRTC, and that's where I joined the Bespoke team last January, 18 months ago, and yeah, help them kind of move that forward to a place where it is today.
Excellent. So your involvement has been developmental for Digium as well as developmental for your good self.
Yeah. So I'm the first to say that I know very little kind of C programming, which is why I think I've contributed one line into Asterisk maybe. But
to be clear about your open source involvement, the stuff you'd done in Node you'd made open source as well, haven't you?
Yeah. So I have probably, I think, 8 or 9 modules out on NPM, the Node Package Manager. My most successful one, which I'm really pleased about, is one called Source Labs, and that gets like, I think, 250,000 downloads in a month, something like that. So it's widely used. Loads of people get use out of it, and that's the great thing about open source.
And what does that particular one do, Dan?
So that one, it's kind of a wrapper on top of Source Labs API. Source Labs is a browser testing tool, so you can spin up a browser in your browser. So you can spin up Internet Explorer on your Mac, and you can test the website, and you can do it in an automated fashion. And Source Labs lets you do that. My module is a wrapper around their API, so that you can kind of change statuses of tests and things like that. But many people use it and get use out of it.
Great. Well, that's top class. Well, so of course, one of the reasons for talking to you is you're one of the speakers selected for participation at this year's Astrakhan 2015 in Orlando. We'll be there on October the 13th through 15th. And so I wonder if you could, before you jump in and tell us what you're going to be speaking about this time, tell us about some of your other participations in Astrakhan in years gone by.
Sure. So my first one was titled Asterisk, Node.js, and HTML5, or something along those lines. And it still gets loads of views on SlideShare today. Whether or not that's because there's some buzzwords in the title or not, I'm not sure. But yeah, the first one was very much a look. This is what we did with Node and Asterisk and WebSockets and HTML5, and look how fairly easy it was. That was my first one. That was very much a showcase of what we did at Holiday Extras. And yeah, that kind of took off. My next one was I can't remember. I'm sure there's another one in there.
There is. You came for a second year, didn't you?
There was yes, and it was my Lego themed slide deck, if I remember, and that was to do with taking metrics out of Asterisk. And kind of displaying them nicely. So take a call center, we want to know how many phone calls have come into a queue and how many calls have been dropped out of a queue. But you don't want to go down the whole route of like getting something like queue metrics in. Asterisk has all of this information, and it's just a case of taking that information out, whether or not that's via the AMI or whatever. And then displaying it, and that showed off like utilizing like graphite, if I remember rightly, as well as some HTML5 graphs, so that you can interact with the graph. So yeah, I'm very web focused, and then last year I did a talk with Tim Panton about WebRTC and getting the most out of WebRTC. There's an awful lot of kind of building blocks that you don't really have access to within the browser unless you go and do some fiddling under the hood with WebRTC. And that was what we were talking about, and we wanted to kind of show just how much bandwidth a call can take if you don't take some of these precautions.
Right.
That was last year.
Great.
I think that's it. I might be missing one in there, maybe.
No, I think 3 sounds about right. I think you're coming up to your 4th here. Now, of course, one of the things you have in common with Tim Panton, other than being British, is you're both 2 of Julie's favourite men. Along with Matt Jordan, she's got a little box of favourite men, and you're all in there.
And David Duffett, of course.
every now and again. So, Dan, tell us a little bit. Whet our appetite slightly. You don't need to give us chapter and verse, but tell us a little bit about what you've chosen as your theme for this year's talk at Astrakhan. And by the way, just before you start, I should just say, having gone through what you've already done at Astrakhan and we're coming on to what you're going to do, it kind of sounds like you've been involved over these years. And I just want to make the point that we hand select the speakers every year, and it's a testimony to your presentations and the quality thereof that they've been selected for that many years in a row. There's plenty of people that have spoken once and have not been selected again, but there are a select few that get to come back year on year, and yourself, people like Tim Panton and many others are in that category. So fire away.
Okay. Well, firstly, I'm really pleased to be speaking at Astrakhan again. I love the crowd, but we can talk about that a bit later. I think the talk is titled Building Call Center Applications for the 21st Century, or something along those lines. And yeah, basically I've grown really bored of complex Java applications that are 10 years old, that aren't utilizing new technologies, and aren't utilizing some of the new things within Asterisk. Like the industry can only move so quickly, but everything's now kind of at a point where we can start building these cool new applications with Asterisk as it is today, with the ARI, as well as using like new browser technologies like WebRTC. So yeah, my talk's going to be building well. I'll stop there. It's essentially just showing people how fairly easy it is now in comparison to 5 years ago. It is to build your own contact center application.
Great, and you've got the magic word WebRTC in there as well. Sorry, yeah. Julie, can I jump in there? Were you going to say something?
No, you're good. You're fine.
Ah, okay. So, all right then, Dan. Well, yeah, it's great that we're having you along. We have started announcing speakers on the Astrakhan website at astrakhan.net, and you're already up there. We're just confirming some more over the next few days, and we'll have the full stable of speakers selected by the end of this week. So we're very excited about that. If somebody's never been to Astrakhan before and they're thinking about making Orlando their first one, what would you tell them, Dan?
Well, firstly, Orlando is easily accessible from anywhere in the world in comparison to, say, Vegas last year. So no one has an excuse. But getting onto like a more serious point, Astrakhan is full of some of the brightest minds in the Asterisk community. Some don't make it, but most do. And that's where you really get to start talking to like-minded people who can really kind of, whether or not you're stuck on something and you can ask one of the Asterisk developers for help, or you can't quite figure out how to lock down your PBX or something. There's going to be someone at Astrakhan that knows exactly how to solve your issue. But it's not necessarily you've got an issue and you need an answer. because there's mailing lists and other things for those things. It's the fact that you get to meet everyone, you get to have a laugh, you get to, I guess, sit by a pool this year, and have a few drinks and get to know people. In a world where we all work remotely and we work with people across the globe, etc., meeting people has never been so important. And in my mind, having a face-to-face meeting with someone that you've spoken to online will change how you communicate with that person forever.
Absolutely, yeah, I agree that the personal dimension is paramount there. And of course, talking of meeting people face-to-face that you've spoken with online, remember that #1 rule: never let anybody you've only ever met on IRC move in with you. Very important before we carry on. What I was going to say was, yeah, that personal dimension is important. And of course, although there's lots and lots of Asterisk people there, as you'd expect, all because somebody's an Asterisk person, it doesn't mean that they're not very well versed in other things or important in many other ways. And this year we'll have senior people from Red Hat there, we'll have people from Twilio along, we'll have people from various other projects, OpenStack, of course, a very important one. And so that conglomeration of people is a unique collection of people that only come together once a year, and that is, of course, Astrakhan.
And isn't Free PBX World at the same time this year?
You know, Dan, now you come to mention it, it jolly well is.
Well,
Free PBX World, well done, is hosted at this year's Astrakhan. We're looking forward to having those guys. So not only can you meet all the Asterisk people, but all those famous people from Free PBX, like Tony and Philippe, or the Schmooze brothers, as I used to call them back in the day. They're all available to meet at this year's Astrakhan. So yeah, very, very much so. So I wanted to round off, Dan, by I know that you've come in, you've done some work with Digium, for which we're very, very grateful. And you, in your own personal progression, you've moved on, you've got your own consulting company. I wonder if you wanted to tell us just a little bit about that before we round it off.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, I was very lucky to be given the opportunity to work with Digium 18 months ago, 19 months ago now. But to be able to do that, I had to form my own company, which was great at the time. It was something that I wanted to do. But now that I've left Digium, I'm essentially expanding my business, Nimble a little bit more, and we do a huge range of things: WebRTC, Node.js, phone systems, web stuff, a load of stuff, and it's very difficult to explain in a sentence what we do, because everything is kind of joining together at the moment, and that's the beauty of the state of the web business, especially. So yeah, we're planning on expanding within the next couple of months, hopefully, and we'll see what happens from there. Excellent.
Well, we've very much enjoyed and continue to enjoy, because you're still buddies with Digium. The journey with you on your own personal road to career excitement, Dan.
Yeah, it's an exciting time. It's a busy time, but no pain, no gain.
Well, great, Dan. Thank you very, very much for taking the time to speak with us. Julie, is there anything we should have asked Dan and we didn't just yet?
You know, you guys have been very thorough today and covered everything I had on my list. The one thing I would add is, we're looking forward to seeing everyone at Astrakhan 2015 in Orlando. Register at astrakhan.net, and come and see myself, David Duffett, Dan Jenkins. Now you have faces with the names, and just
the lovely Allison.
The lovely Allison will be there. You'll recognize her voice if you've never met Allison in person. So, just come up and say hi to us, and we look forward to seeing everyone at Astrakhan. And thanks so much, Dan, for being here.
No problem. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, thank you very, very much, Dan. And of course, one person without whom Astrakhan wouldn't be complete is the man that started it all, Mark Spencer. He'll be along as well. And Alison and Mark are like the king and queen of the Asterisk world, and it's nice to have them together on those occasions.
It is, it is. All right, gentlemen, it's been a pleasure today, and we look forward to talking to you guys soon. Take care.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.